श्री गोविंद गोपीनाथ मरण मोहन जू की जय। नित्य प्रविष्टो विष्णुपाद अशत रशत शिशिमार भक्ति वेदांत नारायण गोसाई महाराज श्रील गुरुदेव की जय। नित्य प्रविष्टो विष्णुपाद अशत रशत शिशिमार भक्ति वेदांत वामन गोसाई महाराज की जय। नित्य प्रविष्टो विष्णुपाद अशत रशत शिशिमार भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। नित्य प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद शतर शत शिशुमार भक्ति प्रज्ञान केशव गोसाई महाराज की जय। नित्य प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद शतर शत शिशुमार भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोसाई प्रभुपाद की जय। नित्य प्रविष्ट महाभागवत श्री गोरक्षरस बाबूजी महाराज की जय। श्री रूपानुगौर्य गुरुवार्ग की जय। श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भट्टदास रघुनाथ शार गोसाई प्रभु की जय। श्री स्वरूप दामोदर राय रामानंदारी श्री गौर पार्षद वृंद की जय। नाम आचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री क्षेत्र मंडल कोरमंडल व्रजमंडल मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की जय। सर्व अभिष्ट प्रदत्त गिरिराज महाराज की जय। श्री राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड की जय। श्री यमुना देवी गंगा देवी की जय। श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय। श्री भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री पूर्णमासी योग माया की जय। श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। श्री ग्रंथराज श्रीमद्-भागवतम की जय। श्री भ्रमर-गीत की जय। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। श्री निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। ओम ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय राधिकाय प्रियात्मने श्रीमद्भक्तिवेदान्त नारायणेति नामिने। नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो महावदान्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नाम्ने गौरतिषे नमः। गुरुवे गौरचन्द्राय राधिकायै तदालये कृष्णाय कृष्णभक्ताय तरभक्ताय नमो नमः। यं प्रव्रजन्तमनुपेतमपेतकृत्यं द्वैपायनो विरहकातर आजुहाव पुत्रेति तन्मयतया तरवो विनेदुस्तं सर्वभूत हृदयामुनिमानतोऽस्मि। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। शृण्वतं स्वकथा कृष्ण पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तन हृदन्तस्तो यभद्राणि विधुनोति सुहृत्सतम्। Upsai. अष्टप्रयेष्वदेषु नित्यं भगवत सेवया भगवत्युत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठकी। तवैवास्मि न जीवामि त्वया विना इति विज्ञाय राधे त्वां नायमां चरणान्तिकम्। भक्त्या विहीना अपराधलक्षाय क्षिप्ताष्टकामादितरङ्गमध्ये कृपामयि त्वां शरणं प्रपन्ना वृन्दे नमस्ते चरणारविन्दम्। भज श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. One second, let me just open this up. "47. All right. Dandavat pranams, everybody. So I thought today, before we sorry. Okay. So yeah, I thought today before we start going through this finishing up this last part of Bhramara-gīta, we could sing the full, this chapter. I thought we could sing the full Bhramara-gīta together. But first let me just find it. Oh, and let me open up my camera. One second. Let's see all who's there now. Haribo, Haripriya Didi, Raseshwari Mataji, Madhavi Didi, Indira Mataji, Prajumna Prabhu, Mantramurti Mataji, Bhavatarani Mataji. Oh, I just found out it was your birthday yesterday. Happy Appearance Day. And Ganga Mataji, Dandavat Pranams. All right. So let's find this. Okay, it would be, I think, under resources. All right. Where is it? Yeah, here it is. This is done by Amit Krishna Prabhu. I think he has Bhramara-gīta here. There's Gopi-gīta. Let's see, is there Bhramara-gīta? There's Yugal-gīta. Bhramara-gīta. Yep, there it is. Okay. So it's verse 12. Let's read what the thing right before Bhramara-gīta. Whereas it's here. Hare Krishna Shah Sharmaji. Oh, and Dandavat Pranams Nri Hari Prabhu and Champak Didi Haribo. And Shah Sharmaji Haribo. Okay, so now so thus speaking, the gopis whose words, bodies, and minds were fully dedicated to Lord Govinda put aside all their regular work now that Krishna's messenger, Sri Uddhav, had arrived among them. Constantly remembering the activities of their beloved Sri Krishna, the activities that their beloved Krishna had performed in his childhood and youth, they sang about him and cried without shame. One of the gopis, while meditating on her previous association with Krishna, saw a honeybee before her and imagined it to be a messenger sent by her beloved. Thus she spoke as follows. Okay, this is it. Madhupakitava bandho masprishanghrim sapatnya Kuchavilulita mala kumkumas shmashrubhirna Vahatu madhupatistan maninam prasad. Vahatu madhupatistan Manininam prasadam yadu sahasi vidambyam yasya dhutastvam idrik. The gopi said, O honeybee, O friend of a cheater, don't touch my feet with your whiskers, which are smeared with the kumkum that rubbed onto Krishna's garland when it was crushed by the breast of a rival lover. Let Krishna satisfy the women of Mathura. One who sends a messenger like you will certainly be ridiculed in the Yadu's assembly. Sakre dadara sudang swam mohini payayitva sumanasa iva sadyas tatyajesman bhavadrik paricharati katang tat Pada parmang parma yapi bhattarita cheta yuttama shloka jalpai. After making us drink the enchanting nectar of his lips only once, Krishna suddenly abandoned us, just as you might quickly abandon some flowers. How is it then that Goddess Padma willingly serves his lotus feet? Alas, the answer must certainly be that her mind has been stolen away by his it must certainly be that her mind has been stolen away by his deceitful words. Okay, let me just Kemi habahu sharangre gayasi tvam yadunam adipatimagrihana agrato na puranam vijaya sakasakina giyatam tat prasanga shapita kucharu jaste kalpayatishtamishta. O bee, why do you sing here so much about the Lord of the Yadus in front of us homeless people? These topics are old news to us. Better you sing about that friend of Arjuna in front of his new girlfriends, the burning desire in whose breast he is now relieved. Those ladies will surely give you the charity you are begging. Devi bhuvi charasayam kasriyasta durapa kapataruchirahasa Bhruvijrimbhasya yasyu charanaraja upaste yasya bhutirvayanka api chakripana pakshe yuttama shloka shabdha. In heaven, on earth, or in the subterranean sphere, what women are unavailable? He simply arches his eyebrows and smiles with deceptive charm, and they all become his. The Supreme Goddess herself worships the dust of his feet. So, what is our position in comparison? But at least those who are wretched can chant his name, Uttama Shloka, the Supreme Lord who is glorified by the most sublime prayers. Visrija Shirasi Padam Vedmaham Chatukarar Anunaya vidushaste bhyetadhotyar mukundat swakrita iha vishrishta patyapatanyaloka vyasrijada krita cheta kim nu sandheyamasmin. Keep your head off my feet. I know what you're doing. You expertly learned diplomacy from Mukunda, and now you come as his messenger with flattering words. but he abandoned those for who his sake alone gave up their children, husbands, and all other relations. He's simply ungrateful. What should I make up with? Why should I make up with him now? Mrigayuriva kapindram vivyadhe lubdha dharma striyamakrita virupam strijita kamayana balemati balematva veshtaya dvanksha vadyas Tamalamasita Sakyar Dustyajastat Katartha. Like a hunter, he cruelly shot the king of monkeys with arrows. Because he was conquered by a woman, he disfigured another woman who came to him with lusty desires. And even after consuming the gifts of Bali Maharaj, he bound him up with ropes as if he were a crow. So let us give up all friendship with this dark complexioned boy, even if even if we can't give up talking about him. Yada yada nucharita lila karna piyusha viprut sakreda dhana vidhuta dvanda dharma vinashta Sapadigraha kutumbam dinamutsrija dina pahava iha vihanga bhikshu charyam charanti. To hear about the pastimes that Krishna regularly performs is nectar for the ears. For those who relish just a single drop of that nectar, even once, their dedication to material duality is ruined. Many such persons have suddenly given up their wretched homes and families, and, themselves becoming wretched, traveled here to Vrindavan to wander about like birds, begging for their living. Vayamritami jihima vyahritam shraddhadhana Kolikarutami Vagya Krishna Vadvo Harinya Dadrishura Sakridetat Tanakasparshati Smararuja Upamantrin Bhanyatamanya Varta. Faithfully taking his deceitful words as true, we became just like the black deer's foolish wives who trust the cruel hunter's song. Thus we repeatedly felt the sharp pain of lust caused by the touch of his nails. O messenger, please talk about something besides Krishna. Priya Sakka Punaraga Preyasa Preshita King Varaya Manurundhe Mananiyo Simenga Nayasi Katami Hasman Dustyaja Dvandva Parshvam Satatamurasi Somya Shirvadhu Sakamaste. O friend of my dear one, has my beloved sent you here again? I should honor you, friend, so please choose whatever boon you wish. But why have you come back here to take us to him, whose conjugal love is so difficult to give up? After all, gentle bee, his consort is the goddess Śrī, and she is always with him, staying upon his chest. Apibata madhupuryam Aryaputro dhunaste Smarati sapitrigehan Somya bandungscha gopan Kvachirapi sakathana Kinkarinam grinite bhujamaguru sugandham murdhnya murdhnadasyat kadanu. O Uddhav, it is indeed regrettable that Krishna resides in Mathura. Does he remember his father's household affairs and his friends, the cowherd boys? O great soul, does he ever talk about us, his maidservants? When will he lay on our heads his aguru-scented hand? Wait, what verse is that? 21. So Shukadev Goswami said, having heard this, Uddhav then tried to pacify the gopis who were most eager to see Lord Krishna. He thus began relating to them the message of their beloved. And so then we read that all yesterday. Let's see. Shri Uddhav said, I'm not going to read it all, but I'll just read. Shri Uddhav said, certainly you gopis are all successful and are universally worshipped because you have dedicated your minds in this way to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. Devotional service unto Lord Krishna is attained by charity, strict vows, austerities, and fire sacrifices, by japa, study of Vedic texts, observance of regulative principles, and indeed by the performance of many other auspicious practices. By your great fortune, you have established an unexcelled standard of pure devotion for the Lord, Uttama Shloka, a standard even the sages can hardly attain. By fortune, you have left your sons, husbands, relatives, and homes in favor of the supreme male who is known as Krishna. You have rightfully claimed the privilege of unalloyed love for the transcendental Lord, O most glorious gopis. Indeed, by exhibiting your love for Krishna in separation from him, you have shown me great mercy. My good ladies, now please hear your beloved's message, which I, the confidential servant of my master, have come here to bring you. And so then he conveys the message. I'm not going to read the message. He says, when her lover is far away, a woman thinks of him more than when he is present before her. Because your minds are totally absorbed in me and free from all other engagement, you remember, and so you will very soon have me again in your presence. Although some gopis had to remain in the cowherd village and so could not join the ras dance to sport with me at night in the forest, they were nonetheless fortunate. Indeed, they attained me by thinking of my potent pastime. Shukadev Goswami said, the women of Vraj were pleased to hear this message from their dearmost Krishna. His words having revived their memory, they addressed Uddhav as follows. The gopi said, it is very good that Kamsa, the enemy and persecutor of the Yadus, has now been killed, along with his followers. And it is also very good that Lord Achyuta is living happily in the company of his well-wishing friends and relatives, whose every desire is now fulfilled. Gentle Uddhav, is the elder brother of Gada now bestowing on the city women the pleasure that actually belongs to us? We suppose those ladies worship him with generous glances full of affectionate, shy smiles. Shri Krishna is expert in all kinds of conjugal affairs and is the darling of the city women. How can he not become entangled now that he is constantly adored by their enchanting words and gestures? O saintly one, does Govinda ever remember us during his conversations with the city women? Does he ever mention us village girls as he freely talks with them? Does nights in the Vrindavan forest, lovely with lotus, jasmine, and the bright moon? As we glorified his charming pastimes, he enjoyed with us, his beloved girlfriends, in the circle of the ras dance, which resounded with the music of ankle bells. Will that descendant of Dasharha return here by the touch of his limbs? Will he return here and by the touch of his limbs, bring back to life those who are now burning with the grief he himself has caused? Will he save us in that way, just as Lord Indra brings a forest back to life with his water-bearing clouds? But why should Krishna come here after winning a kingdom, killing his enemies, of kings? He's satisfied there, surrounded by all his friends and well-wishers. The great soul Krishna is the lord of the goddess of fortune, and he automatically achieves whatever he desires. How can we forest dwellers or any other woman fulfill his purposes when he is already fulfilled in himself? Indeed, the greatest happiness is to renounce all desires, as even the prostitute Pingala has declared. Yet, even though we know this, we can give up our hopes of attaining. Who can bear to give up intimate talks with Lord Uttamashloka? Although he shows no interest in her, Goddess Shri never moves from her place on his chest. Dear Uddhav Prabhu, when Krishna was here in the company of Sankarshan, he enjoyed all these rivers, hills, forests, cows, and flute sounds. All these remind us constantly of Nanda's son. Indeed, because we see Krishna's footprints, which are marked with divine symbols, we can never forget him. O Uddhav, how can we forget him when our hearts have been stolen away by the charming way he walks, his generous smile, and his playful glances, and his honey-like words? He Nata He Ramanata Vrajanatharti Nashana Magnam Udara Govinda Gokulam Vrijinarnavat. O Master, Goddess of Fortune, O Master of Raj, destroyer of all suffering, Govinda, please lift your Gokul out of the ocean of distress in which it is drowning. Shukadev Goswami continued. Lord Krishna's messages having relieved their fever of separation, the gopis then worshipped Uddhav, recognizing him as none different from their Lord, Krishna. Uddhav remains there for several months, dispelling the gopis' sorrow by chanting topics of Lord Krishna's pastimes. Thus he brought joy to all the people of Gokul. And we read a long purport, a commentary by Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura yesterday on that. Oh, maybe you can have a chance to do that another time. We can sing the Bumblebee song. Maybe you could do that live here the day after tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to read about Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, but maybe you could do that the day after. Oh, Indira Mataji sent this message. All right. Okay, so let's continue with our reading. Hari Bol Shukada Didi. Okay, so what? Yavantyahani nandasya vraje vatsit sa udhava vrajoka samkshana prayanyasan krishnasya vartaya. All the days that Uddhav dwelled in Nanda's cowherd village seemed like a single moment to the residents of Vraj, for Uddhav was always discussing Krishna. Commentary. Sārārtha-darśinī commentary by Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura. How did time pass in a moment in Uddhav's presence? The name Uddhav means extreme bliss, and besides Krishna had also empowered Uddhav with the capacity to bestow bliss on others. Thus, the time passed in a moment for the Vrajavasis, who felt extreme happiness in the association of Uddhav, bliss personified. Sāradvana giridronir vikshan kusumitan druman Krishnam samsmarayan reme haridaso vrajokasam. That servant of Lord Hari, seeing the rivers, forests, mountains, valleys, and flowering trees of Vraj, enjoyed inspiring the inhabitants of Vrindavan by reminding them of Lord Krishna. Drishtvaevam adigopinam Krishna veshatma viklavam Uddhava paramapritas ta namasyan idam jago. Thus seeing how the gopis were always disturbed because of their total absorption in Krishna, Uddhav was supremely pleased, desiring to offer them all respect. He sang as follows. Commentary. Having observed the transcendental madness of the gopis, who had attained the highest state of loving ecstasy, wherein their minds were always absorbed in Krishna, Krishna Avesha, and having seen their other exalted qualities, Uddhav loudly sang prayers, offering all respect to them. According to Sridhar Swami, Uddhav spoke loudly to show that it was not improper for one of Kshatriya birth to pay obeisances to mere cowherd girls. He spoke loudly to show that it was not improper for him to glorify the gopis, for a Kshatriya to glorify the gopis. 1 second. Eta param tanubrito bhuvi gopavarvo Govinda eva nikilatmani rudha bhava Vanchanti yar bhava bhiyo munayo vayam cha King Brahma janma bhirananta katharasasya. Uddhav sang, among all persons on earth, these cowherd women alone have actually perfected their embodied lives, for they have achieved the perfection of unalloyed love for Lord Govinda. Their pure love is hankered after by those who fear material existence, by great sages, and by ourselves as well. For one who has tasted the narrations of the infinite Lord, what is the use of taking birth as a high-class Brahman, or even Brahma himself? Commentary. Uddhav describes the outstanding glories of the Vraj Gopis in 5 verses, 58 to 62. Uddhav saying, the gopis alone have perfected their lives by achieving Rudha Bhav, Mahabhav, which those striving for liberation, those who are liberated, and devotees such as I desire but cannot attain. Therefore, for one who has attraction to the topics of the unlimited Lord, what is the use of Brahminical birth, the threefold births by seminal parenthood, the sacred thread initiation, and sacrificial initiation which pertain to the birth? There is nothing special about them, since just by attraction to the topics of the unlimited, one can attain the highest achievement. Or else, for one who is attracted to the topics of the unlimited, what is the value of Brahminical births, since lack of attraction to his topics renders all such births useless? Gremastriyo vanacharir vyavichara dushta Krishne kvachaisha paramatmani rudha bhava Nan vishvaro nu bhajato vidusho pisat sakshach Shreyastanotta gadaraja ivopayukta. How amazing it is that these simple women who wander about the forest, seemingly spoiled by improper behavior, have achieved the perfection of unalloyed love for Krishna, the Supreme Soul. Still, it is true that the Supreme Lord himself awards his blessings even to an ignorant worshipper, just as the best medicine works even when taken by a person ignorant of its ingredients. Commentary. Therefore, the reason for someone being most exalted is devotion alone, and not such factors as performance of austerities and knowledge. Though this devotion is the most exalted, it is not deemed so by the common people. Remaining in such a place, pure devotion remaining in such a place, pure devotion makes one its own shelter, making him most exalted, worshipable by all, and most rarely approachable. In two verses 59 and 60, Uddhav speaks about this with astonishment, his hair standing on end. Uddhava saying, "These gopis are considered lowly on account of their being women, their birth as cowherds, and their behavior. Since it is their nature to wander about the forests, they are naturally contaminated by improper behavior. So where have these women attained Mahabhav for Krishna, the Supreme Soul, who is the source of all other souls, and is superior to his other forms such as the Lord of Vaikuntha?" The use of the word kwa, where, in the first two lines, the use of the word qua, where, in the first two lines, indicates the impossibility of its existence. In other words, where else have such persons as these apparently insignificant and impure gopis attained the highest perfection of life, namely unalloyed pure love for Krishna? It seems most astonishing that they could be so spiritually elevated. But on thinking a moment, Uddhav decided, it is not so amazing. Uddhav continued thinking, certainly, the Supreme Lord can give this most auspicious thing to such persons as this, who are without philosophical knowledge of Atma and Brahman, and not just to perfected persons. To devotees like the gopis, Krishna gave liberation from samsara and the pure ecstatic taste of his love, which is difficult to attain even for liberated souls. Nectar, Amrita, the king of medicines, gives substantial benefits by bestowing a unique sweet taste along with dispelling a person's disease, even to one ignorant of its identity. Similarly, why then should Krishna not give that most exalted Mahabhav, which even devotees like Narad cannot attain, to these gopis who are perfect in devotion, who are bhakti siddha, and eternally liberated, nitya siddha? Besides that, these gopis are in full knowledge of Krishna's personal form and identity, qualities, opulences, and sweetnesses. And they have engaged their intelligence in Krishna's service, as well as all the limbs of their bodies, their youth, feminine charms, and all other ornaments. I don't know why I said other, and all their ornaments. There are three types of adulterous women. The first is a woman who enjoys both her husband and a lover, being faithful to neither. She enjoys her husband and her lover, being faithful to neither. But ordinary society and the scriptures condemn this conduct. The second type of adulterous woman is she who abandons her husband to enjoy only with her lover. Society and the scriptures also condemn this behavior, although such a fallen woman may be said to at least have the good quality of dedicating herself to a single man. The last kind of adulterous woman is she who abandons her husband and enjoys in the attitude of being a lover of Krishna. Although foolish common people criticize this position, such behavior is glorified by those who are wise in spiritual science. Therefore, learned members of society and the revealed scriptures praise such single-minded devotion to the Lord. Such was the gopis' behavior. Thus the term vyabhichara dushta, corrupted by deviation, indicates the apparent resemblance between the gopis' behavior and that of ordinary adulterous women. The characteristics of Ruda Bhava or Mahabhava are described in Ujjvala Nilamani. Nayam Shiyonga Unitantarate Prasada Swaryo Shitam Nalina Gandharucham Kutonya Ratsotsavesya Bhujadanda Grihita Kantha Labdha Shisham Yarudagar Vrajavallabhinam. When Lord Shri Krishna was dancing with the gopis in the Ras Lila, The gopis were embraced by the arms of the Lord. This transcendental favor was never bestowed upon the goddess of fortune or other consorts in the spiritual world. Indeed, never was such a thing even imagined by the most beautiful girls in the heavenly planets, whose bodily luster and aroma resemble the lotus flower. And what to speak of worldly women who are very beautiful according to material estimation. Commentary. Sri Krishna, the best of all avatars, exists on the highest platform of purity and morality, and thus he always remains praiseworthy by all, even while accepting worldly criticism for his cow tending, wandering in the forest, taking meals with young monkeys, stealing yogurt, and seducing other men's wives. Similarly, the gopis, who are the essence of Krishna's pleasure potency, who are the essence of Hladini Shakti, achieved the highest standard of purity and auspiciousness, even in comparison to the goddess of fortune. And thus the gopis are supremely glorious, even though they were criticized by worldly people because they were mere cowherd women living in the forest and behaving in an apparently improper way. Uddhav said, "Oh, even Lakshmi, who resides upon the chests of Lord Narayan and who has enjoyed unlimitedly with him, never got such mercy. What then to speak of the women of heaven, the wives of Lord Upendra, of Vamandev, and the other incarnations who possess extraordinary beauty, good qualities, and fine fragrance like that of a lotus?" In this verse, the supreme position of the gopis is established in that they achieved the rare mercy of being embraced around their necks by the arms of Krishna during the Ras dance. This statement also implies that among all auspicious events, the Ras dance is the most excellent. Now we come across this most famous verse. I remember we had to learn this in Gurukul. But yeah, this is quoted all the time. If you don't have it memorized already, good to try to memorize it. Asamaho charanarenu jushamahang syam vrindavane kimapi gulmalatoshadhinam yadustyajang swajanamariyam patang chahitva bhejor mukunda padavim shrutibhir vimrigyam. The gopis of Vrindavan have given up the association of their husbands, sons, and other family members who are very difficult to give up, and they have forsaken the path of chastity to take shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda, which one should search for by Vedic knowledge. Oh, let me be fortunate enough to be one of the bushes, creepers, or herbs in Vrindavan, because the gopis trample them and bless them with the dust of their lotus feet. Commentary. Uddhav said, "As it has been proved that the gopis' love is the most rare to obtain, it would be improper to desire it. Therefore, it was with lack of judgments that I have said that Mahabhav which those desiring liberation, let me reread that. As it has been proved that the gopis' love is the most rare to attain, it would be improper to desire it. Therefore, it was with lack of judgment that I have said that Mahabhav which those desiring liberation, those liberated and devotees like me hanker after. But now, with proper consideration, let me correctly express my desire. I want to be born as some low shrub, creeper, or grass upon which the gopis will their feet. One may question, but what is that supreme excellence of the gopis' worship that you desire their foot dust rather than that of such exalted personalities as Lakshmi? Uddhav replies, I have never seen intense worship where one can break all the mundane principles of religiosity, shyness, and sense control. Every night, the Vraj gopis give up all shame, the respectable upbringing, and religious codes, which are as hard as thunderbolts to break, and they run off to meet Krishna. At the time of returning home, they are completely oblivious as to whether they as to whether they are following the right footpath or not. Then they will place their blessed feet upon my So then, if I can become a shrub, or grass in Vrindavan, then they will place their blessed feet upon my head, which will be present there in the form of some blade of grass. As for now, even though I pitifully beg for its million, sorry, even as for now, even though I pitifully beg for it millions of times over, they are not willing to put their feet on my head. Therefore, my life will be successful only if I am born as a blade of grass in Vrindavan. And I remember when we were reading during our reading, we came across Gurudev's explanation of this. Let me just find that because it was so beautiful. Gurudev is saying, which gopi? Sri Radha. But even Sri Radha, that was too here. It was in here. Let me just find it. Sorry, so after speaking the aforementioned verse, Uddhavji began to think, I could never possibly have the good fortune to take birth in Vraj in the form of grass and be constantly sprinkled by the dust of the gopis' feet. Therefore, praying for only one particle of the gopis' foot dust, he said, we'll come to that verse now. Oh, that verse comes later. That's 63. Okay. Yavashriyarchitam jadibiraptakamar Yogeshwarar apiyaratmani rasa goshyam Krishnasya tar bhagavata charanaravindam Nyastam staneshu vijahu parirabhyatapam. The goddess of fortune herself, along with Lord Brahma and all the other demigods who are masters of yogic perfection, can worship the lotus feet of Krishna only within her mind. But during the Ras dance, Lord Krishna placed his feet upon these gopis' breasts, and by embracing those feet, the gopis gave up all distress. Commentary. In this verse, Uddhav again glorifies the Mahabhav of the gopis, which is inaccessible to Lakshmi and others. Uddhav said, indeed, the gopis relieved their mental anguish at the rasa arena by embracing the lotus feet of Krishna to their breasts. These are the same lotus feet that Brahma, Lakshmi, and others worship in their minds, but can never touch directly. This point is explained in such verses as Yad Vanchaya Shir Lalanacharat Tapo Vihaya Kamam Suchiram Drita Vrata. Desiring to touch your lotus feet, the goddess of fortune performed austerities for centuries, giving up all other desires and taking austere vows. Okay, so my Gurudev said, so after speaking this verse, praying to become a bush creeper or medicinal herb so that he can become blessed by attaining the gopis' foot dust. After speaking that, he thought, I could never possibly have the good fortune to take birth in Vraj in the form of grass and be constantly sprinkled with the dust of the gopis' feet. Therefore, praying for only one particle of the gopis' foot dust, he said, Vande Nanda Vrajastrinam Pareno Mabhikshnasha Yasam Hari Katorgitam Punati Bhuvanatrayam. I ceaselessly offer obeisance to the foot dust of the gopis of Nanda Baba's Vraj. The narrations of Sri Krishna's pastimes sung by these gopis shall forever purify the three worlds. And then Gurudev says, from which gopi's foot did Uddhav desire a particle of dust? Śrīradha. But he began to think, I am not even worthy of this. So if I attain a dust particle from the feet of any one of her Sakhis, then my birth will become successful. Let's see Srila Viśvanātha Chakravartī Thakur's commentary. Commentary. After glorifying the gopis, Uddhav offers his respects in this verse. Uddhav said, I offer my respects to the foot dust of the cowherd women of Vraj continuously, as long as I do not get birth as a blade of grass, which will make it easy to get their foot dust. Their loud songs about the form, qualities, and pastimes of Krishna purify the three worlds, removing the contamination of ignorance. In the phrase pada renum abhikshnasha, the affix sha indicates perpetually, not just 3 or 5 times a day. In relation to this section, Vyas and other commentators have concluded as follows. Among all the gopis, those who worship Krishna are the best, since Krishna is the original supreme personality of Godhead, Swayam Bhagavan. Among those devotees, those who are Krishna's immediate associates in his pastimes are more intimate because of their loyalty in following him. Among these intimate associates, Uddhav is the best, for it is said about Uddhav, Tvam tu Bhagavateshvaham. Among the devotees, I am Uddhav. That's what Krishna says in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 11.16.29. And also, no dhavon vapi man no. Uddhav is not less than myself. That was in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 3.4.31. Despite his extremely elevated position, however, Uddhav himself desired the bhav of the Vraj gopis and had the greatest regard for them. According to Sri Vaishnava-toshani, Uddhav did not offer such respects even to Krishna's queens in Dwarka. Among the gopis, Śrīradha is the highest, and following her is the highest achievement. Shri Shuka Uvacha Gopiranugya Yashodam Nandamevacha Gopam Amantradasharho Yasyan Aruruhe Gratam. Shukadev Goswami said, Uddhav, the descendant of Dasharha, then took permission to leave from the gopis and from Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj. He bade farewell to all the cowherd men and, about to depart, mounted his chariot. Commentary. Begging their permission, Uddhav bid farewell and departed. Tam nirgatam samasadya nanopayanapanaya Nandadayo nuragena pravochan ashulochana. As Uddhav was about to leave, Nanda and the others approached him bearing various items of worship. With tears in their eyes, they addressed him as follows. Commentary. Nanda Maharaj and other Vrajvasis held various gifts in their hands. During Krishna's Poganda and Kaishora ages, his childhood and youth, they had collected many jewels, gold coins, and pearl ornaments, and during Krishna's youth, many clothes. Now, in their feelings of separation, they lost interest in keeping these things, so they offered them as gifts to Uddhav. Manaso vrittayo nasyu Krishna padam pujashaya vacho bidhayinir namnam katat pravanadishu. Nanda and the other cowherds said, May our mental functions always take shelter of Krishna's lotus feet. May our words always chant his names, and may our bodies always bow down to him and serve him. Karma bir brahmyamananam yatra kvapishvare chaya mangala charitardhanai ratirna Krishna ishvare. Wherever we are made to wander about this world by the Supreme Lord's will, in accordance with the reactions to our fruit of work, may our good work of charity always grant us love for Lord Krishna. Commentary. Nanda Maharaj said, "Our dear long-lived Uddhav, we, Krishna's mother and father, have been most heart-hearted toward our son, even though he is a great ocean of beauty, good qualities, and character, and we remain so. We understand that the abundant affection and care we previously showed Krishna now appear to have been artificial, since even in his absence we remain alive. King Dasharatha was actually the only real father in this world, because he immediately died upon hearing that his son Ram had gone away. We, on the other hand, do not even have a trace of love for our son. Therefore, this omniscient son of ours has rejected us as unqualified parents. Being the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he has used his inconceivable ingenuity to make Devaki and Vasudeva his parents instead. Therefore, Yashoda and I should be completely condemned as the most unfortunate persons in the three worlds. Nevertheless, perhaps in some future lifetime, we may become aware of Krishna as he is and become attracted to him." In this way, Nanda Maharaj prays in 2 verses. That's text 66 and 67. Nanda Maharaj's statement, "May our minds take shelter of Krishna's feet," is a reversal due to great love. Actually, the mind and senses of Nanda and Yashoda are always absorbed in Krishna, but they prayed in this way. This indicates the extreme predominance of the sanchari bhav of dainya, or humility, within them. Moreover, it is the nature of those who possess Krishna prem in friendly, in sakyaras, in parental, in vatsalyaras, or conjugal moods, in madhuras, to become indifferent to themselves as repositories, as ashray alambana of love. For love's object, Vishaya Lambana, Krishna, due to the extreme hopelessness they feel in separation from him. Hence, in their excessive humility, they forget their own proper moods and instead take up the mood of servitude, dasya bhav. An example of Sakya turning into dasya is as follows. When Balaram, near the end of the Brahma Vimohan Lila, thought this Krishna, being aloof, is not even now confiding in us, he developed dasya bhav and said, "Prayo mayastu me bhartur." This must be the Maya of my Lord. That was from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam chapter 13.37. An example of dasya bhav in Madhurya Ras is as follows. Radha said, "He ha natha ramana preshta, dasya ste kripanaya me." O Master, O Enjoyer, being this wretched maidservant to you. That was in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 10.30.40. And a gopi said, "Kvachid api sa katha na kinkarinam." Does Krishna ever talk about us, his maidservants? That's in this chapter, verse 21. The present verse gives an example of dasya bhav and vatsalya ras. The cowherds headed by Nanda Maharaj said, "Manaso vrittayo nasyu Krishna padam bujashraya." May our mental functions always take shelter of Krishna's lotus feet. However, although they spoke like this, even in a state of ecstasy, Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda would never give up their parental love with Krishna and speak like Vasudeva and Devaki, who, due to being overcome with an awareness of Krishna's opulences, said, "Yuvam na suto." You are not actually our sons. That will be in chapter 85, verse 18. So Nanda Baba and Yashoda Maya could never speak like that, like Devaki and Vasudeva. Evam sabhajita gopai Krishna bhaktya naradhipa Uddhava punaragachan maturam Krishna palitam. Shukadev Goswami continued, "O ruler of men, thus honored by the cowherd men with expressions of devotion for Lord Krishna, Uddhav went back to the city of Mathura, which was under Krishna's protection. Commentary. The word Krishna Palitam indicates that even though Uddhav was very attracted to Vraj, due to being fully devoted to Krishna, he returned to Mathura, which was being protected by Krishna. Shukadev Goswami intends to criticize Krishna here. For if Krishna is protecting Mathura, why does he not also protect Vraj by coming there? Yeah, why does Krishna not also protect Vraj? 69. This is the last verse of this chapter. Krishnaya pranipatyaha bhaktyudrekam vrajokasam vasudevaya ramaya rage chopayananyadat. After falling down to pay his homage, Uddhav described to Lord Krishna the immense devotion of the residents of Vraj. Uddhav also described it to Vasudev, Lord Balaram, and King Ugrasen, and presented to them the gifts of tribute he had brought with him. Commentary. Uddhav described how the inhabitants of Vraj had unlimitedly more devotion than the residents of Mathura. Uddhav said, "My dear Master, Krishna, all the scriptures conclude that you are controlled by pure devotion, attained by devotion, and seen only by devotion. Now I have directly seen that among all your devotees, the Vrajavasis have the most intense devotion. After all, your father Nanda has said, Shveti krita kila janam virahena tavad gokulam Krishna dev varshe svetadvipa brahmam dadhe." O Krishna, everyone in Gokul has turned white in separation from you. This has even fooled the sage among the demigods, Narad, to mistake Gokul for Shvetadvip. That's in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Southern Division, 3rd Wave, verse 48. Uddhav continued, Krishna, your father Nanda Maharaj was so much bewildered in your absence that he prayed that his mind would concentrate on you. Manaso vrittayo nasyu. That was in verse 66 that we just read. From this, you can understand his overwhelming attraction to you. And your mother Yashoda was so choked up that she could not say anything. Hearing this, Krishna lost control of his mind and senses, and Krishna cried loudly in the midst of the public assembly. That night, in a secluded place, Uddhav revealed to Krishna the blazing subterranean fire of the gopis' love for him. After Uddhav related to Krishna just one day of the divine madness of the Divyon Mad of Sri Radha, the crown jewel of his dear gopis, and her wonderful prattling, her Chitra Jalpa, Krishna stayed up the whole night, burned fever in separation from Radhika. Thus ends the commentary on the 47th chapter of the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam for the pleasure of the devotees in accordance with the previous acharyas. Krishna stayed up the whole night burning with fever and separation from Radhika. And then my Gurudev, he said, Shri Krishna had sent Uddhav ji to Vraj. Go to the school of the gopis and study the subject of prem. But the gopis did not give him entrance, saying that he was unqualified. Uddhav ji therefore offered pranam to that school from afar. He learned whatever he could by observing it from the outside. Having tried his best to understand, he returned to Mathura. Jai Shri Sarva Vrajadevi Gana Ki Jai. Raseshwari Shri Vishwabhanu Nandini Shrimati Radha Ṭhākurani Ki Jai. Shri Vijendra Nandan Sham Sundar Shri Krishna Chandra Ki Jai. Shri Uddhav Ji Ki Jai. Nanda Baba Yashoda Maya Ki Jai. Sarva Sakagan Ki Jai. Sarva Vrajavasi Gan Ki Jai. Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shri Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai, Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju Ki Jai, Nityalla Pravishtam Vishnupa Rashata Rashata Shishmar Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Gosai Maharaj Shila Guru Deva Ki Jai, Nityalla Pravishtam Vishnupa Rashata Rashata Shishmar Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai, Nityalla Pravishtam Vishnupa Rashata Rashata Shishmar Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Nityalla Pravishtam Vishnupa Rashata Rashata Shishmar Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai, Nityalla Pravishtam Vishnupa Rashata Rashata Shishmar Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai, Nityalla Pravishtam Vishnupa Rashata Rashata Shishmar Srila Gaurkisharas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai, Nityalla Pravishta Srila Satchirananda Bhakti Vinod Ṭhākura Ki Jai, Nityalla Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai, Shri Rupa Anuga Guru Varga Ki Jai, Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath, Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dashagunath Sharda Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai, Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Ṭhākura Ki Jai, Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Kshetra Mandal Gaura Vraja Mandal Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Sarva Abhishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai, Shri Radha Kunda Shama Kunda Ki Jai, Shri Amuna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai, Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai, Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Shri Purnamasi Yoga Maya Ki Jai, Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev Ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Shri Bhramara-gīta Ki Jai, Shri Sarva Vraja Devi Gan Ki Jai, Shri Vrishabhanu Nandini Srimati Radha Thakurani Ki Jai, Shri Krishna Chandra Ki Jai, Shri Sarva Vrajavasi Gan Ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Ki Jai, Srila Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura Ki Jai, Sārārtha-darśinī Vritti Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Vrindai Tulsi Devaya Priyaya Keshavashacha Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Sattvatai Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavat Pranam everybody. Okay. Sukada Didi, there's one from Chaitanya Gaudiya Math. This I don't know his title, but Prabodha Vishnu Daivata Maharaj, he left. He's a disciple of Srila Bhakti Madhav Goswami Maharaj. Oh, actually, in our Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam group, somebody shared something about this. Let me just find it. Yeah, we can read about this person who just left. Let me find it. Okay. So, Champakti, she shared this in our group. His Divine Grace, Shri Bhakti Prabodh Vishnu Daivat Maharaj, left this world yesterday, on the 8th, at 6 p.m. at Sri Chaitanya Gaudiya Math, Chandigarh. He was a disciple of His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Dait Madhav Goswami Maharaj. Maharaj stayed mainly in Chakdaha, Jagannath Puri, and in our Chandigarh Math. He was sweet, kind, and an affectionate sannyasi. He had a lot of love and devotion for Sri Jagannath Dev. It was during 2008 to 2011, when Srila Gurudev Bhakti Vallabha Tirtha Goswami Maharaj was mostly staying in Kolkata, that I had his association. One fond memory I I remember is from Jagannath Puri, Rath Yatra 2012. That was my second time to Jagannath Puri this is from Sundar Gopal, disciple of Srila Bhakti Vallabha Goswami Maharaj. So he said, that was my second time to Jagannath Puri Rath Yatra with Srila Gurudev. Maharaj was staying that time in Jagannath Puri next to the room of Srila Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Goswami Maharaj. His room was small and full of Jagannath Dev remnants, garlands, tulsi, chandan, some special waters, clothes, etc. Anyone who had come to see him inside his room, sorry, let me put this so that you guys could all read it with me. Oh, this is long, actually. Should I just... Actually, it's not way too long. Let me just put it. One second. I'll put it here. Okay. Now you can read it. All right. Oh, so if anybody needs to leave, you can leave. That's no problem. So at that time, he was staying in Jagannath Puri next to the room of Srila Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Goswami Maharaj. His room was small and full of Dev remnants, garlands, tulsi, chandan, some special waters, clothes, etc. Anyone who had come to see him inside his room, they would not go back empty-handed. Maharaj would definitely give them some... Oh, I'm sharing my screen. I just realized. Sorry. Let me share my... Oh, I am sharing my screen. Okay. So Maharaj would definitely give them some remnants of Jagannath Mahaprasad. In that greediness, I would peep inside his room to get some. So one day, I and some devotees from Kolkata went for darshan at the Jagannath temple, stuck inside the temple due to the heavy rain. It usually rains in Puri during that period, since it's the hottest of the year. We were waiting for the rain to stop so that we could go back to the mott. Surprisingly, Maharaj was also there inside the temple and spotted us. Maharaj called us, and we went near him. Maharaj asked, you have done the parikrama or darshan of all the temples inside the temple premises? We replied, no, Maharaj, we only seen the Nrsimha temple. We only saw the Nrsimha temple here and a few other temples. Maharaj said, then let me take you to have darshan of all the small and big temples on the premises. Even though it was raining, we covered our heads with plastic bags and followed Maharaj. I still remember Maharaj took us to all the temples inside the Jagannath premises and briefly glorified their existence. For 1.5 hours, we did this darshan and parikrama inside the Jagannath temple. Mostly in every temple, Maharaj was managing to take out ghee wicks in that rain to offer to the Lord. At last, he went to Madan Mohan temple, where the festival deities are there. We had their darshan, and Maharaj uttered something to the pujari in Oriya language, and the pujari gave the remnant of Jagannath's toothbrush. We were all wet, but overwhelmed with joy to get that. Soon after that, we left and came back to the mott. It was a day to remember. It was the rest of my life. By the grace and kindness of Maharaj, we could have darshan of all the temples inside the Jagannath temple premises. Another occasion I remember was during Rath Yatra in Jagannath Puri. Some pandas in the temple were friends with Maharaj, and during the Anavasar period of Lord Jagannath, they would come to the mott and give Maharaj and other sannyasis remnants of Jagannath's medicines and a special pana. Jagannath takes when he's sick, pana. Maharaj would keep that in his room and would distribute it to the devotees. If anyone would pass by Maharaj's room at Puri Mat, he would stop that devotee and he would give him those remnants. A few times Maharaj gave me that special pana. And also medicines. So he'd give that medicine of Jagannath and also other medicines. I've seen in his room. He was having a traveling altar with all the pictures of the deities of various temples and the Guru Parampara. And every morning when he would sit and chant his Gayatri, he would sit in front of those and would do all his morning rituals. Maharaj was very strict in his devotional practices, and his Vaishnava etiquette was exemplary. I was fortunate to have his darshan and association for a short period of time, which I can remember always. Whoever has come in the association of Srila Maharaj knows how sweet he was. It's very disheartening to see that the senior devotees are leaving, and we are bereft of their sweet association. But Maharaj will always be remembered in our hearts through his teachings and instructions. To fulfill the last desire of Srila Maharaj, he will be taken to Kaliya Dahamat in Vrindavan. His final rites will be performed on the banks of Yamuna on 10th of December at 10 a.m. Oh, that was yesterday. I pay my obeisances unto his feet and pray he may shower a tinge of that sincerity on me so that I can make my human birth successful by serving the lotus feet of Sri Hari, Guru, and Vaishnavas. All glories to the wonderful lifelong service of Srila Bhakti Pramod Vishnu Daivat Maharaj, aspiring Vaishnav Das Anudas, Sundar Gopal Das. All right. So I'll see you all tomorrow for the reading about the glories of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada on his auspicious disappearance day. All right, Haribol, everybody.